Hi, and welcome to Wright Hassall's World of Employment Law podcast. This is episode 2. I'm one of the associates in the employment law team, and I'm joined with my colleague Sarah, who's also one of the solicitors in the employment law team.
Hi.
And today is a Christmas special. We're leading up to Christmas, where a number of employers will have organised Christmas parties. So we're just going to have a few minutes just to discuss any common issues that may arise from Christmas parties. What can employers do to mitigate any incidents that may happen? So I'll hand it over to Sarah now.
So ahead of Christmas party season, I think it's important to note that work parties are an extension of the workplace. And so employers could still be liable for any acts of their employees at the parties. And also the incidents that arise during parties, hopefully there won't be any, but if there are, they should be dealt with under the employer's disciplinary policy as usual. So we tend to see a few common issues that crop up in Christmas parties and other workplace parties. So have you got any that you've dealt with recently, Kash?
Yeah, I've got a few that really come to mind. So common issues that I've had with previous clients are, in particular, violence towards managers. So you've got employees who, of course, take day-to-day instructions from their managers, but of course when there's alcohol involved, some of their frustrations might be showing. So violence is usually a common one. Sexual harassment, again, is a very common one we see at Christmas parties that we're advising clients on. And of course bullying and any other acts of discrimination. I mean, they're usually the most common ones that do crop up at Christmas parties. Like Sarah said, it's an extension of the workplace, so employers need to be wary of how to mitigate this or even prevent it. They need to make sure they take reasonable steps to do so. Come to mind, and I'm sure a lot of people have probably read up on that as well, that they are very common issues that do arise at work parties, unfortunately. Sarah, have you got any other issues that you think might crop up?
Supplying too many free drinks. Employees might not complain about that, but there are risks that people overindulge in alcohol, and then the issues that Kash has raised may rear their heads a little bit more frequently if there's more alcohol on board. But also inclusivity. So you need to take into account that not everybody will drink. So you should be offering non-alcoholic alternatives to make sure that you're inclusive and make sure that there is no pressurized environment in terms of drinking. So everybody's comfortable and drinking at a level that they're happy with. So ahead of Christmas party season, if employers have listened to the concerns that we've raised and things that we see regularly, what can employers be doing to mitigate their concerns?
So a number of things employers can do prior to the Christmas party. So generally speaking, in the lead up, you'll tend to see HR sending out emails about the event, i.e. event details. With that, they could remind employees of the company's internal policies, and that could be, for example, the equality and diversity policies that they need to abide by, and they still apply during that Christmas party. What you'll get is a lot of employees might just assume it's a social event, it's nothing to do with work, therefore they can act how they wish. That's definitely not the case. So again, employers can certainly remind employees of their policies and make it clear that these still remain during that period of the Christmas party. They can also provide training to employees, in particular managers, so managers are aware of what to look out for. And again, that doesn't necessarily just extend to Christmas parties, that extends to the wider workplace. But I mean, if managers are aware of what key issues to look out for, they know how to deal with them, that could certainly be something that employers can do. Another thing I know, Sarah, you touched on it, was the alcohol consumption, is just make sure that's regulated. So as you said, Sarah, make sure we're not offering, let's say, an open bar, so to speak. A few drinks here and there is fine. But again, I mean, even if employees are overindulging, it's not usually an issue, but you just need to keep an eye on it, i.e. if you've got, a particular employee who appears to be very drunk, getting slightly aggressive, that's something that probably needs to be addressed at that point. Again, you need to take into account employees' religious beliefs. Not everybody is going to be drinking, so we need to make sure, as you said, Sarah, there's non-alcoholic beverages available, and that could be soft drinks or even non-alcoholic beer, depending on what the venue is, of course. But you need to take into account those issues. Also, one of the issues I've had with a previous client is holding activities during the work party. Employers need to be aware of any employees who, let's say, may have a disability, to how they can participate in those activities as well, just so everyone is included and there's no discrimination occurring. And also just make sure attendance is not compulsory. I mean, generally speaking, work parties will be after working hours, so it's not compulsory for all employees. So just making sure when you're sending out invites to Christmas parties, we're emphasising that, look, it's not compulsory. It's an optional attendance for all employees. And another one which I think goes under the radar is the risks by posting photos on social media, especially on the, let's say, the company LinkedIn profile. If employees have not consented for their photos to be published online, that could cause potential data protection issues, which in turn, of course, could lead to internal grievances. So to prevent instances like that, it may be worth, again, circulating prior to the Christmas party to say, look, we're going to be taking photos for our social media. Please let us know if you don't want to be included in those photos, because they will be published online via, let's say, LinkedIn. So there's some of the things that have cropped up for me with clients, in particular last year's Christmas parties. I don't know, Sarah, if you have anything to add on that.
Yeah, I think the only other couple of things that I'd mention is making sure that employees are getting home safely. I'm sure they're all adults and they're probably capable of doing so themselves, but you might want to consider putting on some transport back to the office or something, so you know that employees are getting home safely and that they're not engaging in drink driving or anything like that. And certainly the communications that go out before that could relay that message and make sure that employees do have some way of getting home and they're aware of that. And the other thing is not setting precedents in terms of how you usually deal with post-party. So in terms of people coming into work the next day, if the party is not on a weekend, setting clear expectations in terms of when people can come in, if they can come in late, if they're expected to come in on time, and also expectations around productivity and those kind of things. So if, for example, for a few years running, you've let everyone leave at 2:00 on the last day before Christmas and everyone's gone to the pub and had a drink or something like that, you do need to be careful about setting precedents with things like that, because that could become a regular thing that employees do expect and could be quite hard to get away from.
So if an incident did occur in the work Christmas party, how can an employer deal with that, Sarah?
So I think we mentioned at the start just briefly that if an incident does happen within the party, hopefully they won't, sometimes they do, employers should be prepared for that and should have strong policies in place in terms of harassment, bullying, equality and diversity. Those kind of policies are really important. And if there is any such incident during the party, it should be dealt with under the usual disciplinary policy or in accordance with the relevant policy if it's a different matter that the company has in place. But just in relation to sexual harassment specifically, there has been a recent act that's received royal assent, and it's expected to come into effect during 2024. And that is strengthening the rules on workplace sexual harassment. So employers have always been liable for that, and they always have needed to have policies in place and take corrective action if anything such does crop up. However, employers now need to take reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace, and because Christmas parties and other parties are an extension of the workplace, that would include at Christmas parties, etc. The new act, when it comes into force, will give the Employment Tribunal the power to uplift sexual harassment compensation by up to 25%. So that will make quite a difference to claims that are brought in the Employment Tribunal for sexual harassment, and do definitely mean that employers need to make sure that they're aware of this and have correct policies in place, and also during parties are monitoring the situation, making sure that things aren't getting out of hand and making sure that everybody's comfortable and just having a great time without any incidents cropping up.
If you have any questions on today's podcast, please do email in on employment.podcast@wrighthassall.co.uk. That email address is in the bio. So please do email in any questions or queries that you may have. We do also offer a retainer service for employers. If you need any policies drafted or any advice on Christmas parties or any advice in general on, let's say, sexual harassment, etc., that would all be covered under the retainer. In addition to that, we do offer training. I know we touched on that earlier in the podcast by providing employees with training, in particular their managers. That's something that we can also provide. So we do look forward to receiving your questions. So thank you for listening, guys, and I hope you have a good festive season.